We are back. It is the Carrie, oh my gosh, the Elizabeth. We were just talking about Carrie. Carrie, where are you? This is the Elizabeth and Olivia show. We're back again talking about branding and social media, and we have a special guest on our little hangout chit chat show tonight, and that is Monique. She has a lot of stuff going on, but specifically we want to talk about the Visionary Journal, and I will let her introduce herself to all of you.
Hey, as Olivia mentioned, I am Monique Malcolm of KeepChasingTheStars.com, and I am a goal coach and implementation strategist. So I spend a lot of time helping people come up with a plan and then actually executing it so that you can take all of those big ideas and get them out into the world because I believe the world needs more doers and less dreamers. So as Olivia mentioned, I have a book called The Visionary Journal, which is a vision board, goal setting planner, task manager, day planner, all wrapped up into one smart little package. And I am super excited to be here as a guest and talk to you guys about setting goals and taking action.
Awesome. So what we do during this time is we do Q&A on social media and branding, and this ties perfectly into what Monique does as far as setting goals, but not just setting them, but actually executing them and having a vision, because a lot of times people will set out, I know Elizabeth can attest to this, where they say, I need to grow my Facebook following, or I need to have an Instagram page, I need to be on Twitter, and the question always is, well, why? And what goal are you setting? And then how are you going to execute that goal with social media or with branding your business? So let's kind of take a step backwards and talk about, maybe Monique, you can help us how you kind of came up with the branding for Create Your Vision and the Visionary Journal, and then talk about how you set those goals up to actually then achieve that branding.
Oh, so let's see, where do I start? Um, so for me and my personal brand, there's a lot of pink. It's very pink. I love the color pink. My hair is pink. And so I really try to play that up. In the past, I've kind of been in a place where I feel like I need to be something specific, but it wasn't really what I was. So going into planning out this project, I really kind of took a step back and tried to figure out, like, what do I want people to know about me? What do I want to show? So I focused really heavily on aesthetics that I found pleasing and that kind of worked with the things that I liked. When it comes to actually creating the book and the branding, I was very intentional with designing the planner to make sure that it looked clean and streamlined, but it didn't force somebody into my look per se. So I adapted it so that it could fit several types of people, um, but not necessarily be so pink and girly that it put people off. So I kind of tried to streamline it a bit and make it look sleek and kind of sexy, but not, you know, overly girly. So that was kind of a really important thing as far as branding aesthetic wise went. So trying to merge what I like and what I think would work for multiple people. Um, as far as vision and planning out that over time, I took about 3 months. So 3 months to create the project in the back end, as far as, you know, working with the production company that I had that made it, and then actually spending 3 months building an audience, teasing it out, and showcasing like things to come. So it was all kind of strategic, I guess, on my end, but I think it really just kind of boiled down to who did I see having this product and how could I meet them halfway while still being able to show the things that I feel like make me me.
I had myself on mute for a second there. Just a minute. I've got kids. I was like, kids, you need to eat
Yeah.
dinner and get in bed, and I won't want to hear any of it in the background.
Well, my husband just came in because he came home with the kids. He's like, hello. I'm like, quiet. It's quiet time.
Funny.
But, so I
So,
have a question.
oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
I have a question for you, Monique. I've noticed that your Instagram has changed a lot since you launched your visionary journal, and I want to ask you about that process and if you have like a follower count that you had a goal for, and how you just went about that.
Well, to answer the follower count question, no. I've kind of tried to stay away from staying focused on the numbers there, just because it's fickle. Although I have noticed that it has started growing pretty consistently, and
Yeah.
I get new followers every day, even when I don't post things. So that's a good thing. As far as kind of how that happened, I really tried to get I took some hard looks at my feed and kind of decided like what can I do and what do I not want to do? Because my big thing, I love Instagram. I absolutely love it. But I don't necessarily do Instagram worthy things all the time. And so that was a big thing that kind of stressed me out. I want it to be beautiful. I want it to be consistent. But I'm not doing beautiful and consistent things all the time. Sometimes I'm staring at the computer for hours.
Nobody
So
is.
and that's
They
true.
just pretend they are.
And I definitely
Right.
feel that. Um,
Don't
but
get me started. Don't get me started. Hey,
I
Monique, real quick, what is your Instagram so we can tell everyone to follow you?
it's Star Chasers TV. So I am at Star Chasers TV.
Oh, TV. Okay.
Yeah, TV like television. But so I tried to come up with a way to kind of hack that so that I didn't have to put so much pressure on myself to have beautiful images all the time. So that's kind of when I decided to do the quotes. And instead of just doing them haphazardly, there's a method to the madness. So I like that all the quotes are the same color and they're lined up down the side and they just work. Um, that was that took a lot of pressure off of me of having to come up with new photos and images all the time. For the launch, I kind of focused on trying to create quote images that tease the launch and kind of match the font that I use on the journal. So I did the Visionary Journal Manifesto. So if you go down a little bit more, I think on the third row, you'll see the last of the manifesto number 10.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
awesome.
so I did that to kind of match up things. But honestly, it was just kind of me deciding like this what I had wasn't working, and I wanted a happy medium between clean, consistent photos and image and quotes because I do like to post quotes, but I like to create my own. And I originally started with quotes on a white background, but I found it makes the other images pop better if I have the quotes on a dark background. So I switched that up.
I love that you did that. That's awesome. I think we get, a lot of my quotes are on white background as well, but I think we get kind of bombarded with this aesthetic that everyone's doing of the white background. So I love that you switched it up. And I have to say, I'm loving, if you guys can see it kind of in the middle on the left side, the highlighters, actually all over, the highlighters and the post-it notes, like these are like real things that we use and real um, pieces of stationery and writing utensils and all the stuff that we actually use day to day. I love
So
the
here's
bright.
the question. Do you actually use them?
Yes,
Okay.
if you go back up, there's a picture in the very center where you can see my desk right there in the middle. Like that's my actual desk. That's what it looks like every single day. It's a black desk, and as you can see, there's post-its and things stuck all over it. And I prefer post-its and highlighters and things that are neon colored. I don't buy anything else. All of the pens and everything I have are neons.
Good, that's awesome. I have a question for you. Initially, you talked about just that your love of pink and feeling like you had to present a certain way or be a certain way, and you kind of broke out from that. Tell me a little bit more about that process and really stepping into your own brand, and kind of what it took to do that.
Um, well, I think in a lot of ways, when you look at people who are kind of in the coaching space, and I'm in a little bit of a weird place because I am in the coaching space somewhat, but I didn't start there. I used to be a t-shirt line, and I still do that to a small degree. But a lot of what I do is product based. So I've always kind of worked in the product space, and having a clothing line, I was able to project a certain personality because that's just kind of what is a part of having a clothing line. You get to express yourself through clothing, and there's a certain thing that kind of goes with that. But being in the coaching space, I kind of felt like if you want to be taken seriously, then you need to look a certain way. You need to project a certain thing online. And you kind of see that a lot. I find that people who are coaches, a lot of times their Instagram feeds and their blogs and stuff kind of look the same. And there's certain colors and there's just an aesthetic there. But whenever I would try to force myself into that aesthetic, it just didn't feel right because that's not me. As you can see from my desk, it's colorful, it's bright. I have like a faux taxidermy unicorn head hanging in front and center. What you couldn't see is like to the side, there's a miniature giraffe faux taxidermy, and then there's like a little reindeer with glasses faux taxidermy. So there's all this random, wild, colorful things that are in my space all the time. So it's like a huge disservice to me and people who I think would want to work with me to not show that because there are people who want that coach that has a super beautiful, clean, you know, gilded stapler thing going on with their aesthetic. But then there's some people who want somebody who is, you know, serious, knows what they're talking about, but is a bit more laid back and has a process that still works, but they're able to kind of make people feel comfortable because it doesn't have to feel so stiff and forced. And that's kind of where I try to streamline things.
So what type of people do you think you attract then? So you're being you, and I feel like that's the best way to go in building a brand is not to be like everyone else, but to really truly be yourself. And I truly, with all my heart, believe that when you step into that, that you're going to attract the right people to you for your business, for your coaching and consulting. So what does that person look like? Or who are they?
Um, a lot like me, minus the colorful hair. So I met and I tend to attract other women who are serious about their business, but again, they don't have that super, super clean, specific aesthetic. And, you know, in a lot of ways, maybe they're a bit quirky. They have things about them that, you know, maybe they're projecting online that other people wouldn't project because they would find that as off brand. But I think that I just kind of attract women who are a bit comfortable in their skin and are kind of okay with being um, not necessarily traveling on the beaten path. And it comes out a lot when I go to conferences. I always meet ladies who are like, "Hey, I know you because I know your hair from online," and it always
Hmm.
kind of cracks me up because they tend to be like the same type of women all of the time.
So when you said that you wanted to break away from the kind of standard aesthetic of the gold stapler and gold safety pins and whatever. So how did you make that decision, and then how did you move away from that? Because sometimes it can be hard because you know that people like it, and this coach has a lot of followers, so you're like, oh, well, maybe I should do this. But how did you break that kind of cycle that a lot of people fall into?
Well, the breaking the cycle of the gold aesthetic, I never saw that to begin with because I don't particularly like gold.
So
So
funny.
it's I don't own any gold jewelry. I don't buy anything gold. So when I see that stuff in the store, it doesn't appeal to me. Um, and I've kind of always been like that to a certain degree. There's a lot of things about me personally that I don't think fits into some of those aesthetics. So, you know, to see people with these beautiful desks that are white. I went to the store and I saw that same white desk, and I was like, I don't like that. I'm gonna get this black one because that's what I like. And when you're gluing and taping and sticking stuff there, I need this black desk to hide all of that. So, in that respect, it was kind of easy. And just like other stuff. So, when I see people and they're like, have these beautiful desks and they have, coffee and things laid out. I don't like that. I don't even like coffee. So in a lot of ways, some of those things weren't hard to avoid because I don't like them in the beginning. So I think that was really a struggle for me for a while, especially trying to kind of nail the aesthetic that I wanted to portray because it was like, well, all of this stuff is working for these people. How can I do it? But every time I would think, how can I do that? I couldn't do it because it's stuff that I honestly just don't like. So, it couldn't even be a situation where I'm going to fake it and just do it because I don't want to spend money on that because I literally don't like it. So I think that made it easier, and just really learning how to embrace myself as a business. Going into where I'm at with business now, I had to do a rebrand and make a lot of changes. And so in that process, I really did kind of sit back and think, what is working? What do I really like? And what do I want to get rid of?
So when I work with clients, I always tell them that you need to create goals. Because when you log into social media, you're pulled a bunch of different ways. And if you have goals, then you have a vision, and you can do things while you're online to make that vision happen. But I'm just wondering how your journal fits into that and how it would help people achieve that.
Well, as far as, are you asking like how could you use it in regards to like setting goals for business and like social media, that type of thing?
Yeah, and what do you think about creating goals and creating a vision so that you don't get pulled in different directions, whether it's branding or social media or business?
Well, the first thing I think about when you ask that question is the whole idea of having a vision. So a lot of people operate with no vision. They have a goal or they have an idea, but they haven't really sat with it long enough to see how it looks beyond maybe even tomorrow. Sometimes, it's very short-sighted. So if you have a vision, what you're really doing is you are thinking long term. So whether it's a month, 6 months, a year, whatever time frame you're working on, and you're saying like, this is how things are going to be 6 months from now. And you're getting very clear and very specific on that. And to the point where you're thinking, the outcome looks a specific way, you feel a certain way, you've achieved a certain amount of things, and the better and more clear you can be with those things, the easier it is going to be for you to achieve them because your mind starts to shift and you start to get creative and come up with ways that you can actually achieve this big outcome because you know how it looks. It's kind of like traveling to a place for the first time. If you go there and even if you have a map, it's still going to take you longer than when you visit that place several times and it's familiar to you, you know what it looks like. So I believe that in all things, if you have a goal and there's a specific outcome that you're looking for, you absolutely need a vision. Whether it's social media, branding, your personal life, you need to know what the bigger picture looks like and how does that bigger picture translate into other things. As far as goals, the more that I talk to people about goals and the more that I kind of do research in that space, the less I feel like it's about the actual goal and it's more about the process behind it. Because when I initially did the visionary journal, my thought was people didn't know how to set goals. And then as I started putting it out there and talking to people who were using it and setting goals, I started to realize it's less about how to set the goal. It's more about the process and the plan and the strategy behind the goal. And that's where most people lack. And there's not a lot of things out there that help with that, especially if you're a person who likes to plan on paper. There aren't really systems in place that say, all right, so you have this goal. It's going to take you 3 months. Here's what you need to do at month one. Here's what you need to do on month two. Here's what you need to do on month three. There's not really anything that I have found that's comprehensive that takes all of that into account and lets you keep it in one place. So I think that if you are going to be setting these goals, especially ones with longer timelines, that's kind of what the journal is there for, and it's useful in that space because it gives you a structure to plug in your information into, and then you are basically on the hook for doing the actions.
I'm on mute. I'm good at setting goals and I can do it and I do it all the time. And then I think where I fall short all the time is consistency and accountability in completing all of the steps it takes to get to that place of actually achieving the goal. So I think that the whole accountability piece and then consistency. How do I set these goals, set the action steps in the process and how to implement and complete them, but not lose steam halfway?
So I have a few tips for that. One, get yourself an accountability buddy or two. I have two. We meet every week on Sundays via Skype, and we chat for about an hour and a half. And we talk about what went well, what didn't go well, and what we're doing in the next week. So that way I know I have committed to something and I've said it out loud to two people, and they're going to be asking, like, what were your results? So I find that to be very, very helpful because everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, but when you know you have to kind of show up and say, this is what you did, you will do more because you said that you were going to do it, and you don't want to have to disappoint people or say, no, I didn't get anything done. So that's one thing. As far as consistency goes, that's kind of like a habit, a muscle thing. You kind of have to use some self-discipline and some willpower there and just practice being consistent. And that doesn't mean that you have to do all things at all times. You just have to start with one small thing and start being consistent about that. And that kind of helps you build up your consistency muscles because it's a thing. And the more consistent you are, the better results you will see in everything. The last thing, as far as how do you keep up steam when you have a goal and it's got a long timeline or just have other things going on, I like to break down my goals into milestones. So, for example, with doing the journal, there were certain things that had to happen at certain points, and I couldn't move past them until they were done. So that, one was going in and submitting the files to the printer, the raw files, and then I had to pay something by a certain time, or I had to sign off on something at a certain time. So every time I got to a checkpoint, I would instead of looking at the entire project, I just focused on what was the next milestone that I have to hit. So okay, they gave me the quote. Now I have to get them the raw file. So that was the only thing I looked at. I didn't look at what I needed in the end, which the outcome was getting all of the journals. It was just, this is what I need to focus on. This is my part that I have to do now. And if you do that, it's less overwhelming because you're only working towards that one point. And then to make it better, at each milestone, there's a reward. So, as you get higher up the chain of things that you have to do, the rewards get better. So that's kind of a motivation there.
So what's the rewards that you created for yourself?
So right now I have basically rewards based on sales. So I need to sell a certain amount by a certain time. And so there's like tiers to that. So, as I hit them, there's other things going on. So like one was like going to this fancy sushi restaurant on this island over here. We're going to have dinner there because there's no good sushi in the town that I live in. But on that island, there is. So that's one thing. The next milestone after that is another sales goal, and I'm gonna go to the spa. I'm gonna get a massage because honestly, I'm just tired. I need some relaxation, and so the next milestone after that is like a fancy spa service at the day spa. So like not even just a massage. I'm talking about like something that's ridiculously priced that I'm like, do people pay for that? I'm going to do that because why not? So it's just, like I said, as I get closer to the process, the rewards get better. And you can do that with lots of things.
I love that. So I just recently finished a launch, and my coach, she told me, write on a Post-it the amount of money you want to make and the signups that you want. and put it on a door that you go through, like my door to my office, so that you see it every day and you get used to the idea that you can sell 100 spots, or you can make $10,000 or $20,000. And like you were talking about earlier, it just gets you in the headspace to realize what you can accomplish if you want to.
That's true, and that's really the difference between those who do and those who don't. It's all a mind shift, because really the only gatekeepers and roadblocks that you truly have are in your own mind. So once you get past like the craziness and the impossibility of it, it just makes it so much easier to do.
I wish we could actually show people. I'm just looking through here, and I'm still diving in. I'm still at the very beginning of actually setting my big goals for the year. What will I accomplish in 1 year? But just even looking back at these, you have at the back you've got accomplishments, challenges, things to improve on. This is at the end of each month. And then I love that you have the stars to rate the month. Um, so I've had months where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just hit it out the park. That's a 5-star for me. And I've had months too where I'm like, wow, Olivia, that was you get 1 star. You need to kick it up a notch the next month. So I love that. I love the 90-day action plan that you have. Like I said, I wish we could highlight all of this stuff, the milestones that I'm working towards, and then like what you just mentioned, rewards that I'll enjoy once I reach these milestones. So I'm totally in love with this journal and can't wait to dive in even more on each section of this. I also love, let me say, real fast, I love that you have every so many pages, you have these quotes, dream then do, baby steps count. Like I feel like you've actually just laid out my Instagram posts for the next couple months. These are my
I
Instagram.
feel the same way. I was like, oh,
No, go ahead.
no, I'm not. I was like, well, that's gonna go on Instagram. That one's gonna go on Instagram.
That's
It's
total.
kind of
That's smart. It's such smart branding for you.
yeah.
For sure.
Thank you. It was very intentional, and it it did not all happen overnight. I think that's something that I'm still learning a lot about, being a personal brand, and branding, with this new product. But um, I really did spend a lot of time thinking, like, how can this be appealing to the most people in that I'm looking to serve, while still honoring like the things that I like. Because I realized not everybody wants a pink planner, and I actually had somebody ask that when I was, in the production stage. They were like, "Well, what is it going to look like? Is it going to be pink?" And I was like, "No," because I know everybody doesn't like pink like that. I do, but it doesn't appeal to that many people. So I think that that's something that you don't realize when you're trying to figure out your branding. Like, you have to honor yourself and your likes, but you still have to be conscious about what other people who are you're trying to serve are going to be into. And I don't think that I ever really had to consider that before. Or maybe I just didn't. I probably always had to consider. I just didn't know to.
I love that you use the word serve, because that's what you're doing when you create a brand, and it really is about them. And instead of like, how am I going to make money off of this, it's about what problem am I going to solve for people. So I just really like that you use the word serve. So another thing, I wrote a blog post about creating goals for your journal, and I created a goal of doubling my clients, and so that I could hire someone to help me. And after I wrote the blog post, I was like, well, crap, why don't I just do it right now? So, yeah, it didn't take long. I decided I was going to do it, and I did it. And now I've doubled my clients, and I have an intern. Like, why not? Just do it.
And I think I said this to somebody the other day, like, you kind of start putting these ideas out there. And then as you start putting them out there, you're just like, you start to think like, why am I putting that off? Or why am I thinking so small? Like, why not? Like I shared with my 1 year goal, my goal for next year is I want to do like a 10 city tour with the Visionary Journal. I want to do a workshop and teach people about it and, have the journals there and start this conversation. And when I shared that with the person, I was like, I don't know why I'm limited to 10 cities. And then I was like, I don't know why it just has to be in the States. Like, why can't it be international? And then you start getting in the space and you're like, but I could totally do more with that. And then there's like a whole excitement to it. So I think that's fun and really useful.
Monique, what do you say to people with regard to fear? So I know I'm not the only one, but we set these big goals. Some of them are really lofty. Some of them are very doable, and we're pushing ourselves to really step into a place where we know that we can be. But then there's this thought that creeps in occasionally that, what if I don't hit that goal? What if I don't make it? What if I don't make it in time? What if I disappoint myself? What if I disappoint the people I'm serving? How do you combat that notion of fear?
I did a Periscope about this earlier today. Because you know what? So I call that a fear spiral. And before you get to the fear spiral, there is the chorus of fear. So the chorus of fear starts warming up with those little thoughts. So like, you can't do this. How dare you? What happens if like people think you're stupid? And if you don't shut it down soon enough, that chorus turns into like a full-on church sermon, like singing to the angels. Like, I mean, it's going. And so you really have to kind of temper that before you let it get too far. What I shared earlier today is that your fear is not unique, and that's not to say that you shouldn't honor your fear and kind of give it its space. But having fear is not unique. Everybody is scared. There's not a single person that I know that's doing amazing things that is not at some point melting down or freaking out. It's happening. They may not be talking about it, but I tell you, it is happening. Every single person that I know who's a business owner has had a fear spiral that has turned into a meltdown. I'm telling you. So, like I said, it's not a unique place to be afraid. And then my other thing is, being a small business, you are small enough to make mistakes and recover from them, and almost nobody realizes it. And sometimes we get a little bit vain and feel like, we made this mistake and people are going to know it and it's going to be this public shame. A lot of times that's not the case. You are not Beyonce. So if you have a bad day, it's not going to be on TMZ. And so you have to kind of be okay with that. But ultimately, you just kind of have to feel the fear and do it anyway. Because the more you practice fearless habits, the more that you can push yourself to do. Because every time you do a little bit more, extend yourself beyond your comfort zones and push your limits, that gives you more bandwidth for what you're comfortable with and what you can take. And it makes doing things a lot easier, because then you get to a point where something may not even register on your radar as being a discomfort where it did a year ago. Or maybe it's a discomfort, but you have a solution for it and you just kind of get over it. So you just kind of have to be in a place where you feel it, give it, honor those feelings, and just realize that you still have to keep it moving, because nothing good exists in a place of fear.
So I have a quick story on that. This is me being super vulnerable, because this is failure that happened today.
Oh, like but, the fear spiral meltdown that I had this afternoon?
Yeah, it's fresh fear. So I wrote my blog post and used the Visionary Journal as a guide to set a goal, a 1-year goal, and that was that I was going to work with my husband to create kind of a spin-off of what we do separately. I do branding consulting, and he does kind of the back end of that as far as email marketing, setting up your sales funnels. So he sells product. He's actually the monetization person. So I make everything look good and appeal to the right target, etc. And then he actually brings it to life as far as on the back end what you don't see in making the money. So a lot of times our clients need both of us, and so we thought, okay, we'll continue to do our separate things, but merge together and create kind of this additional entity or company. So we set a goal, and we set a launch event for next week, is a week from today, and we decided that our target would be Denver startups. And the way we got to it is just because I know you guys can attest to it. Sometimes you have a heart for entrepreneurs, but those entrepreneurs that you have a heart for don't always have the pocketbooks to pay you what you need to be paid. It's rough. And so there's this constant kind of pull and struggle because my heart is with these women, and yet a lot of these women are startup, just like I was a startup, and so they don't have the money to pay. So there's a lot of ways to work around that, and working with, why we do a lot of online webinars and different things like that. So we decided our focus was going to be startups, specifically because Denver has the highest rate of startups in the whole country, and it's the best place to start a company. And a startup being, it would be 2 to 5 employees or 2 to 5 people coming together. They've got their venture capitalist money, and they're really wanting to launch something big, and they need branding, they need processes in place. Denver startups, 90% of them are in the tech field. I don't have any experience in the tech field. My husband doesn't. And as we sat around, we were like, we really don't have a heart for these people, but we decided to move forward with it anyway because it was a smart business decision. And what we found out as we were positioning ourselves and launching a new website and all of this stuff, we did not get people to sign up for our events at all. So our event's in a week. This is the failure piece. Our event's in a week, and we have 2 people registered for this event, and they're like friends of ours. So what we had a heart-to-heart today, and what we realized was, again, we have a heart for people and one-on-one coaching and working with coaches, working with that entrepreneur. And so for us to shift a business goal to go into an industry that we're not even feeling, that we really weren't called to be in, simply because it's a better choice or there's less failure over there, we still ended up in this place of failure. But we can flip it around to say this is a big realization, and what you talked about when we first got on this call about really knowing who you are and owning it and not worrying about what he said, she said, what other people are doing, what's the smart choice, what's the right choice, but really just resting in your personal brand. So I can appreciate this topic of failure and kind of actually reworking the goals that I set out here to really be in a place where we know we're called to be.
But doesn't that kind of feel somewhat refreshing, like when you hit that point and you realize that? Because I can definitely, I had a conversation with somebody today about pretty much the same thing, like, that was where the meltdown was earlier today, just doing all of these things and kind of feeling still freaked out about, like, how are things going to be taken care of, how are things going to be paid, and really just coming to a point where I just realized, like, the way that a lot of people are doing business online, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just not the things that I want to do. And I refuse to tether myself to things, more work for things that I just honestly hate. Right now, I know several entrepreneurs who are making a killing through, online courses and passive income models and things that don't require overhead or, the investment that I had to make to get the visionary journals done. And so, it's a very stressful place to be in when you have put in such a huge financial investment in something, and you have to, like, hustle to make sure that it pays off, and then seeing somebody else and they're like, I had a 5-figure launch, and you're just like, well, I spent like 5 figures on this thing. It's a very, it's just a very sensitive place to be in. But the reality is, like, I like making physical products. When I got started in business online, as I said before, I was a clothing line, and so I've always dealt in physical products and shipping and taking ideas that I had and making them into, like, a tangible thing. So to a certain degree, the idea of doing things that don't have overhead or don't require me to store them is super duper alluring because it doesn't feel good to have inventory sitting around, let me tell you. But ultimately, it's not what I want to do. Like probably a place and there's opportunities there for my business that I can do and feel comfortable with. But I don't think it's ever going to be like my main source of thing because I just don't like it. I don't necessarily like to take courses. I don't want to have to make them because I had enough schooling. So, it's just not for me. And I think I have just now gotten to that place in the last couple of weeks because a lot of people that I'm close with are making a killing doing online courses and stuff. And I'm just like, well, hey, maybe I should jump on the bandwagon. But I don't like that. And at this stage of my life, I'm just over and I'm not doing things that I don't like. It's just as simple as that. So if I don't like it, I'm just not doing it. And that extends to the way that I do business. I don't like it, I'm not doing it.
I also think that if your heart really isn't in it, it translates to your audience. I am someone who actually jumped on the online course bandwagon because I was teaching in-person workshops, and I loved it. I love the hands-on. I love giving, packets of paper and worksheets and watching people, work through them and having muffins and coffee. That's something that I really love. But so I jumped on the online course bandwagon because I also have a lot of colleagues who they're making 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 grand. And I just launched my course and it went okay. I have people in the course and I'm very excited to work with them and I believe in the work that I'm doing. But I think that it really translated that maybe this wasn't something that I had my whole heart into. So the launch was really difficult because I didn't have that passion, I think, that I needed to have. But so this is my last online course. Don't quote me. It's like in a year I'm like I gotta make that 20 grand. But
It's like you said, it's super tempting when people are making that kind of cash, and it's awesome if you have a passion for that and you can do it. But I just think that there's a place for everybody in business, and I think the more that I get comfortable with myself as a business person and take myself seriously, I just realize that there's just some things and some ways that I'm not going to make money. And I have to learn to be okay with that because there is a place and a space for me. And I am going to fill that space as full as I can with what I have to offer. And so, I have journals in my house and I have journals stored at my printer's warehouse. And I'm gonna sell through them all and it's gonna be fine. But that is just where I have to be in business because I know where I work best and I like being connected with people and sending packages and it's just what I like to do and so I'm going to keep doing it.
So I do want to say, for those of you who want to check out the journal, you can go to thevisionaryjournal.com, and it's not just a journal. It is kind of everything rolled into one. So there's the ability to create your vision boards. Every New Year's Eve, I sit down and I do the vision board. So there's places for me to do my vision board within this journal. It's a planner. You've got your, every day, your months, your weeks, every single day mapped out. So I want to just stress that really I feel like this encompasses everything. And if you're like me, it really takes it takes a special planner and a special, I guess, format to really work. And so I've tried a lot of different ones, and I think this one is really great. There's mind mapping pages, which allow you to really visually put together your goal as well. So, Monique, I'm super impressed, and I know this was a lot of work. Your little baby here, and it's amazing. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Every time somebody says that, I feel really excited and really proud because it was really just like a random idea I had last year, and I was like, how can I make it something? And so the way that people have received it has really just been, um, I think, more than I could be thankful for in a lot of ways. But I think that it's still really an awesome idea, and I have other ways to improve it and make it better and do some other things. So I'm just excited that to hear when people say, that they like it and they're really impressed. Because I think in a lot of ways, um, when I tell you the name and I tell you what it is, you don't know what to expect, and then you kind of get something completely different than what you would think comes in a planner.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just see there's so many ways. I'm glad that you briefly talked about, I don't even think we were live yet, possibly doing affiliates and stuff. And so I see with my clients that I work with, this being an amazing tool to help them walk through their goals. So I definitely want to stay in touch and see how we can um, work together and leverage this further. There's so many applications, as you know, so that's exciting.
Yeah, and I made it as a resource for my course students as well because I was just really impressed. And I think a lot of times we make goals and we just kind of make goals, I guess, and we don't really have like action steps or anything like that. And it seems scary to make 1 year goals, but honestly, that year will fly by. So if you take one step at a time, and then at the end of the year, you've achieved all of these things that you want to achieve. I mean, that's so worth the year investment. So, I mean, I'm really excited to do mine and see what happens and where
And
I'm at next year.
and I can't wait. I can't wait to hear how it all works out. I mean, ultimately, that's really about helping people um, do what they feel are do the impossible in a year. So a year from now, I'm really anxious to see like what kind of stories come out of the community as far as like what happened. So, not trying to rush time. I don't
Mhm.
enjoy getting older necessarily, but I am looking forward to like this time next year to see what people do.
Mhm.
And Monique, I know that you probably get a lot of people throwing ideas at you. I know I get that too, like, oh, you should do this, you should do this, and some of them are so off. or, or you're like, yeah, I'll add that to my plate of 100 things that I should probably be doing. But just thinking about what the Visionary Journal is and the time of year we're in, being Q4, people want to end the year with a bang and really finish strong, and then start planning for that next year. I just feel like there's so many PR opportunities for you to pitch the product, to pitch your journal to local news, local papers, and then even national stories. Everyone right now is kind of trying to ramp up on what's the new thing around setting goals for that new year. And there's so much of, I mean, just the stuff we always hear about setting goals. But like you said, it's more about that process. And I think that's a great spin on the overworked and overused goal setting that everyone does around this time of year. So I feel like there might be a lot of great PR opportunities for you.
I am all ears because that is so. I have some ideas that I'm working on, but you just mentioned a couple of things that I hadn't considered. So we can talk about this because
Okay.
I have I have a much bigger goal in mind, but it takes getting over this first mountain to pursue that other one. So I'm open.
Yeah, Christmas is coming, you guys. Gotta
I
get it
know.
for all your friends.
It's basically the year is over. My grandma and I have this thing like once September hits, the year is done because we're hitting so many back-to-back holidays. You don't have time to stop because it's going to be over.
Yeah, it's pretty much downhill. Downhill from here. But one more thing, and then we could definitely talk offline more. But just that again, the whole notion of New Year's resolutions, and people go crazy over that stuff, and want to talk to goal-setting experts of, why are New Year's resolutions so popular? One, why do people fall off of them by February? and how can we reframe the New Year's resolution thought to really put in beneficial, actionable goals. So yeah, I think there's a lot there.
And I don't think you have to wait till New Year's either. I put this in the blog post that actually I'm gonna sit down and really dive into it right now, because I know in January I'm just gonna be exhausted, and it's gonna be slow, and I'm really gonna have to push my business. So yeah.
That's true. And I think that it's better to start looking ahead and getting some processes into place now instead of waiting until you're right at New Year's and trying to make these resolutions, which is one of the reasons why people fail. They didn't think it through or plan for it.
That's right. All right, ladies. Thanks, Monique. Again, this is thevisionaryjournal.com. Go check it out. We love it. I love the pocket in the back. I could go on and on about everything I love. I'm like, there's a pocket. Oh my gosh. I love that. I have to literally, I take envelopes and I tape them in the back of my journal so that there's a pocket. So this is
my
All
favorite
folders
thing.
used to have pockets. I don't know what happened to that.
My favorite thing ever, the whiteboard.
Oh
That
yeah.
was like
and the whiteboard.
that was like a big thing. I really fought tooth and nail to make sure that my print company did not leave out the whiteboard because they were kind of like, we don't know about that, how we're going to make that happen. But that is my favorite thing about the entire thing is the whiteboard.
And I remember you talking about the die cut and how tricky that was, and so I'm glad you pushed for that.
Yes. So that's my favorite, my top thing about the journal is that you have a bookmark and extra planning space that can be reused.
Yeah, and things change, so the whiteboard is great.
Mhm. Okay, ladies. I
All
gotta make
right.
sure my kids are in bed. I keep hearing oh, there they are. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you
Yeah.
guys for having me.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.